Thanks for joining this webinar, an introduction to the HUBZone program, brought to you by the HUBZone Chamber of Commerce. In this webinar, I'll teach you the value of the HUBZone program to your 2019 and beyond goals in government contracting. You'll also learn the steps needed to get your HUBZone certification if you're eligible. Just like buying a fishing pole doesn't guarantee you'll catch fish, getting HUBZone certified won't guarantee you'll win more contracts. What I can guarantee, though, is this: if you don't buy that fishing pole, you won't catch any fish. If you don't get HUBZone certified, you won't win any of the $13 billion in contracts set aside for HUBZone small businesses each year. So if you can, you must get HUBZone certified. Let me use Oklahoma as an example, since my own small business has its principal office there. As of November 2018, there are 3,853 small businesses in Oklahoma registered to sell to the federal government. A staggering 2,926 are located within a HUBZone, or what I like to call pre-qualified. Only 330 of those are actually certified as HUBZone small businesses. Imagine the benefit to Oklahoma communities and the state if the number of certified firms went from 330 to 990 or even higher. Imagine the benefit to your own community and state. I imagine this every day, and this is why I want you on the path towards HUBZone certification. Let's work together to push that $13 billion off the table and into American communities. My name is Neil McDonnell. If you're anything like me, you're asking yourself, who is this guy and what makes him qualified to teach me? There are a lot of people out there saying they want to help small businesses like yours. Some are qualified to help and some are less helpful. The thing that differentiates me is my breadth and depth of experience, just like yours. It's fair to say I've not only been where you're at, but I'm there right now. I'm a current small business owner in the federal sector. My company, SV MacPack's a certified HUBZone and veteran-owned company that's about a year old. This is my third company focused on the federal government. I'm also the founder and president of the HUBZone Chamber of Commerce, an organization dedicated to helping small businesses like yours get certified and then compete for HUBZone set-aside contracts. There's $13 billion out there for HUBZone companies, and I want you to get a piece of that pie. Finally, I'm the leader of the Small Business Success Club. This is a monthly membership dedicated to helping small businesses achieve success in federal government contracting by working together and following a process. In addition to that, I'm a motivational speaker, trainer, and vocal advocate for the potential of American small businesses. I believe that there are great people everywhere, and if you could just have the opportunity, you would prove your value. My passion's drawn from my personal experiences, such as serving in the U.S. Army, providing contracting services to various government agencies, and from the many successful and failed companies I've founded since my youth. I'm the youngest of 10 children, and that provided a training ground for competition, determination, optimism, tenacity. Now I'm dedicating that energy and velocity towards your success. I once heard that the HUBZone program was the best kept secret in Washington, D.C. That ends today. When I started the process to get my own HUBZone certification, I was shocked at how little was known about the HUBZone program, and most importantly, about its value to local communities across the entire country. In this webinar, I'll introduce you to the HUBZone program, sharing a bit about its history. Then we'll review the benefits of being a HUBZone certified small business. Spoiler alert, there are 13 billion benefits. Next, I'll walk you through the process to determine your company's eligibility to become HUBZone certified. It's really quite easy, as you're going to see. The application process is equally very straightforward, and I'll walk you through it from a high level. This webinar is an introduction webinar. It's not a course on getting certified. I'll create that course as time and money permits. But today, I'll provide you a list of 10 great resources that can help you as you move along towards your own HUBZone certification. So let me reveal the best kept secret in Washington, D.C. The HUBZone program is one of 4 small business programs managed by the SBA, or Small Business Administration. The first is the Small Disadvantaged Businesses Program, or SDB. 8A certified small businesses are automatically considered small disadvantaged businesses. This effort was initially started to address racial and ethnic inequalities. Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, Asian Pacific Americans, and subcontinent Asian Americans are presumed to be socially disadvantaged. The program now includes businesses owned by people who are socially and economically disadvantaged. The second oldest small business program is the HUBZone program, which has been around since 1997. It was designed to aid communities across America hit by high poverty and unemployment rates, as well as low income rates. The thought is that by awarding contracts to businesses in those hub zones, the pass-through impact will benefit the community and help with economic and workforce development. Congress then established the Service-Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business Program to address the sacrifice made by those who became disabled as a result of service to the country. While it had been around in various forms, it wasn't until 2004 that it was really taken seriously. And if you look at the performance since that time, the amount of contracts awarded to SDVOSBs, the Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Businesses, has steadily increased, far outpacing its goals. Finally, the fourth program is the Women-Owned Small Business Program. It exists to make it easier for women-owned small businesses to compete in the federal marketplace and win more contracts. Although a commitment to help was there for the decade prior, it wasn't until 2010 that we begin to see the actual success and commitment. I believe that this can be attributed to industry driving the success, as various women's organizations collaborated towards mutual success. A lot of what industry leaders of the Women-Owned Small Business Program did are what I'm integrating into the HUBZone Chamber of Commerce so we can see similar successes. Again, to put this in perspective, the HUBZone program is one of the 4 SBA small business programs. When trying to figure out where you fit into the bigger picture, it's important to just have a basic understanding of your position. For example, at any given time, there are about 29 million small businesses in America. These are the restaurants, dentists, web design shops, painters, etc. Of those, 1.7 million are registered in the System for Award Management, or sam.gov, meaning they've told the federal government that they want to work with them in one way or another. Of those 1.7 million, about 300,000 of them are actually active and properly registered to sell to the federal government. So we have 29 million small businesses in America, 1.7 million are registered in SAM, 300,000 of them could theoretically win a government contract tomorrow. Now in the federal government, there are 4 small business programs: the 8A Small Disadvantaged Businesses, Women-Owned Small Businesses, Service-Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Businesses, and HUBZone Small Businesses. Of the 300,000 active small businesses, only 5,200 are HUBZone-certified small businesses. You're seeing the trend here, right? We started with 29 million firms, had 300,000 competitors, and now a tiny pool of just 5,200 companies. Here comes my favorite part. 22% of the HUBZone small businesses are owned by a veteran. 37% of those HUBZone small businesses are owned by a woman. And 69% of those HUBZone small businesses are owned by a minority or other disadvantaged person. This leads me to one of my favorite truths. When the HUBZone program succeeds, everyone benefits. Let me say this again. When the HUBZone program succeeds, everyone benefits. Now you can see why I want to help you get certified as a small business. It's part of my larger plan to help all small businesses and, by extension, help all communities across America. I believe the HUBZone program is the tide that will raise all ships, or in this case, all small businesses selling to the federal government. When the federal government achieves its goal in 2019 to award 3% of its small business eligible dollars to certified HUBZone small businesses, then that success will directly and positively impact the other 3 programs. As you can see on this slide, 22% of HUBZone firms are owned by veterans, 37% are owned by women, and an impressive 69% of HUBZone companies are owned by minorities and other disadvantaged people. That's those 3 blocks right there in the middle of the graphic. The percentage you see below the red line represents the actual FY 2017 numbers achieved. What this means is that 1.65% of the small business eligible dollars spent by the federal government in 2017 went to HUBZone-certified small businesses. Likewise, about 4% went to service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses, and almost 5% went to women-owned small businesses. The 8A SDB program did the best with 9% or $40 billion going to small businesses in this program. The percentage now that you see above the red line represents the actual achieved for each of those programs when the HUBZone program achieves its 3% goal. For example, the 8A SDB could be looking at close to $60 billion going to small businesses in that program. The long and the short of it is that when the HUBZone program succeeds, everyone benefits. One other thing to note here about the HUBZone program is on the far right of that graphic. I show the job creation expected when $13 billion is awarded to HUBZone small businesses across America. This is unique to any small business program in that the money from the contract award will find its way into the local community through the small business that won the award. Basically, that small business owner and her employees will spend a lot of their money locally. That means in addition to the job creation for the government contractor, the local pizza shop, tailor, etc. will need to hire more folks as that money is spent in their community. This is called recirculation of dollars and is most impactful when that dollar starts in a small business that's located in a HUBZone. Now you can see why I want to help you get certified as a HUBZone small business. It's part of my larger plan to help all American communities succeed when you succeed. The HUBZone program goes way back, even before 1997 when it finally got on the books. It's a Reagan-era solution to the economic and workforce challenges across America. Back in the 80s, there was definitely a huge bipartisan agreement that something like the HUBZone program would be ideal. In 1997, that actually happened, and then in March 1999, the first HUBZone set-aside contract was awarded. There are three primary goals of the HUBZone program. First, decrease the poverty rate in historically underutilized business zones or communities. Second, increase the employment opportunities in these same communities. And finally, increase the income rates in these communities. Clearly, the second and third goal go a long way to addressing the first goal. Together, though, they're focused on workforce and economic development. By awarding federal contracts to small businesses located in HUBZones, Congress believes that they'll be able to increase the industrial base that serves the nation's agencies, while at the same time ensure that the economic benefits of federal contracts are felt by the communities that would benefit the most. This really is a spectacular program. One key thing to keep in mind about the HUBZone program compared to the other three programs, the beneficiary. For an 8A and small disadvantaged business, a woman-owned small business, or a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, the beneficiary is almost always an individual. That's by design and absolutely necessary. In contrast, the HUBZone program's beneficiaries are American communities, and the positive impact benefits veterans, women, minorities, and other disadvantaged people. It truly is a tide that can raise all ships, or in this case, all small businesses. One other thing to keep in mind is that when I say American communities, I mean that there are HUBZones from Guam to the U.S. Virgin Islands in every single state in between, including the District of Columbia. There are HUBZones in Baltimore, Maryland, and in San Diego, California, as well as Puerto Rico. Almost the entire state of Oklahoma is considered a HUBZone. In fact, that's where I started the HUBZone Chamber of Commerce, even though I live in Washington, D.C. Some other good examples of where HUBZones are located are Virginia and Texas, as well as most of Hawaii and Alaska. When someone asks you about the HUBZone program, tell them it's about economic and workforce development, and you as a small business are taking the lead to ensure success. Having a HUBZone certification is like having a golden goose. Treat it right and you'll make lots of money. Ignore it, or worse, just look at it and expect delivery on demand, and you won't be seeing many more golden eggs. You need to feed that goose. Take it outside for some fresh air. You know, all the things that a goose could possibly want. Your HUBZone certification is the same thing. Get it and just expect the contracts to come rolling in, you're going to be disappointed. But there are definitely certain benefits that'll make it easier for you to win government contracts. First, and the absolute best, is that competition will be reduced massively. Obviously, I'm not making any promises here, but I am telling you what I've experienced over the last year working with over 1,000 HUBZone companies and on close to 200 opportunities. Contracting officers have a tough time getting HUBZone small businesses to respond at all. That's why I say this is the best benefit of getting your HUBZone certification. You can reduce the pool of 300,000 possible competitors by 99%. HUBZone small businesses also get a 10% price bump when going full and open. Say you're competing on an opportunity that a large prime is also bidding, and you both put in a bid for $10 million. Basically, the price preference drops your price to $9 million, making your price obviously lower. There are details you need to make sure that are in place, but this could be massive when you start looking at contracts beyond $10 million or even $100 million. Contracting officers can also sole source contracts to you as a HUBZone small business if they decide that's in the best interest of the government. Another great benefit is that all contracts over 700,000 or so that go to large prime contractors must include a subcontracting plan. These large contractors are held to the same standard as the government themselves for meeting small business goals. That means that if they win a $100 million contract, 3% or $3 million must go to HUBZone small businesses. And by the way, some of these contracts are in the billions. The large primes have a challenge finding qualified HUBZone firms like yours. Get certified and let them know who you are. This leads me to the last benefit, which is kind of a side benefit. Everyone's trying to get better. The federal agencies because they want to meet their goals, and the large government contractors because their CPARs now take into account their ability to meet those subcontracting goals. If they can't find qualified HUBZone firms to subcontract to, then they don't get top marks from the government, which could impact future chances of winning. You want to be a qualified, reliable HUBZone subcontractor to these companies, and they'll keep you forever. The HUBZone program is like an underperforming stock. Since 2009, the value of the HUBZone certification has steadily dropped, while the performance of the small disadvantaged businesses and 8A firms, the women-owned small businesses, and the service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses have steadily climbed. In fact, by 2016, 8A and other small disadvantaged businesses were awarded over 10% of the federal contracting dollars compared to 1.65% awarded to HUBZone small businesses. I'm always amazed at the success of the SDB and 8A program. At the same time, I know that when I help businesses like yours get HUBZone certified, that we'll see the same success for the HUBZone program. The best part about achieving that success in the HUBZone program is that all small businesses will benefit. 22% of HUBZone companies are veteran-owned, 37% of HUBZone companies are women-owned, and 69% of HUBZone companies are 8A and small disadvantaged businesses. For 10 years, the HUBZone program has declined. In fact, in FY17, the federal government awarded only 1.65% to the HUBZone small businesses. This was the lowest performance since 2003, 15 years ago. But that trend has stopped, and this stock is rising. For fiscal year 2018, the initial numbers show that HUBZone small businesses were awarded 1.91%, up from 1.65% just the year before. This isn't by accident. There's been a lot done in 2018 to reverse that downward trend. The most notable is the formation of the HUBZone Chamber of Commerce, which worked to unite HUBZone-certified small businesses across the country. These firms took control and realized that they needed to help contracting officers see the value HUBZone small businesses bring to federal agencies. So if you were ever thinking of getting in the stock market, or in this case, getting your certification, then now is the time. The timing could not be better, and when the HUBZone number hits 3%, bringing spending from $7 billion to $13 billion, you want to be positioned to bring that money back into your community through federal contracts awarded to you as a certified HUBZone small business. Now is the time to get HUBZone certified. The process to determine if your company is eligible for the HUBZone certification is really quite easy. I'll go over each criteria in detail, but let's look at the high level first. There are just 4 eligibility requirements. 1, your company must be a small business according to the SBA standard. 2, your company must be owned and run by U.S. citizens. No Canadians need apply. 3, your principal office must be in a HUBZone. And 4, 35% of your staff must live in a hub zone. That's it. That's the eligibility criteria. I have a rule though. Don't game the system. If you try to game it during a certification process like this, then you might try it on a contract and then you'll end up losing your company and going to jail. It'll be horrible and your kids will never see you again. Seriously though, you're either eligible or not. Don't overthink this. Your company is small or it's not. The owners of your company are either citizens or they're not. You either have an office in a hub zone or you don't. And 35% of your team lives in a hub zone or they don't. Again, you're either eligible or you're not. So let's go into each of these criteria in detail. In order to get HUBZone certified, your business must be considered small by the Small Business Administration. This is based on two things. First, your primary NAICS, which you recorded in sam.gov. Mine is 511-210, for example. Don't assume what your primary NAICS is. Just pop over to dsbs.sba.gov and find your company. This will take you 60 seconds. Your profile will identify your primary NAICS. Again, that's dsbs.sba.gov. The second measurement of your company's size is based on the average revenue from the previous 3 years. Mine is 0 at the moment, but let's say it's 10 million for now. Most of us know immediately if we're considered small. If you don't know, though, you can use a tool the SBA has to quickly make this determination. Here's a URL for you right here on the slide, but let me go ahead and show you a quick demo. This is the landing page for the Size Standard tool. I'll scroll down and hit the Start button. The first information the tool needs is my NAICS, which is 511-210. You see it come up as Software Publisher, which I'll select, and then I'll press the Next button. Now the tool needs to know our most recent 3-year average revenue, so I'll put $10 million in and then click on the See Results. Based on the NAICS I entered, I can have a 3-year average revenue of $38.5 million and still be considered small. Let's go ahead and do this one more time, but use a keyword, for example, software, and then I'm going to pick a wholesale trade NAICS code. This time when I click on Next, you'll notice I'm asked for staff count, not revenue. I'll put in a couple of hundred folks and then click on See Results. On the next page, I'm shown that my company under that NAICS can have 500 employees before I'm no longer considered small. This is a great tool to quickly help you determine your size standard and if you meet the first HUBZone eligibility criteria. For your company to be eligible for HUBZone certification, you need to first be considered a small business. Next, 51% of the ownership of the company needs to be by U.S. citizens. Who owns your company? You? Are you a citizen? Then you're good to go. You and some of your friends. Are you all citizens? Then you're good to go. Some Canadians? Do they own more than 49%? If yes, then you're not eligible. I'm treating this lightly because it really isn't that hard, right? Some other possibilities to consider that'll make your company eligible. If a U.S. citizen owns a company that owns this company, then you're good to go. This is a recent change that reflects ownership. Even though ownership is through another company, it's still by a U.S. citizen. Also eligible are firms owned wholly by Indian tribal governments, Alaskan Native corporations, community development corporations, or small agriculture cooperatives. These eligibilities are great and very appropriate to the HUBZone goal of helping communities. If you're with one of these organizations that owns a business, they're representing community residents and you're good to go. As I said, this eligibility criteria is very easy to make a determination on since it's factual. The first two criteria for determining your HUBZone eligibility are very easy and should take just a minute or two. You're either a small business or not. Your company's either owned by a U.S. citizen or not. The third criteria is perhaps a bit more time consuming, but it's still easy. You must have a principal office in a HUBZone. Let's go ahead and talk about this briefly. First question is always, what is a principal office? It's the office that most of your employees work out of on a regular basis. If you have one office, that's your principal office. It could even be your house. If, like me, you have two offices, then your principal office is the one most people work at. I work in the Virginia office and by myself. 3 of my team work out of our Oklahoma office. So that office in Oklahoma is considered our principal office. And just to be clear, I started my company in the Washington, D.C. area. Before I became HUBZone, I opened an office in Duncan, Oklahoma, where my niece lives, to provide her an opportunity and me a HUBZone community to support. Turned out that was a great decision on my part, and I've found terrific employees in that area to join my company. I don't want to go too deep into examples since this isn't training. It's an introduction webinar to help you decide whether you should pursue the HUBZone certification. But keep in mind a couple of things to consider when determining your principal office eligibility. First, your headquarters does not need to be your principal office. My headquarters is in Virginia, but my principal office is in Oklahoma. Second, don't count client site folks. For example, say you have 10 people, including yourself, in your company. 5 of those folks work 51% or more of their time on site at Travis Air Force Base. You don't have to count those 5 people when determining your principal office, only the remaining 5 folks. Of those remaining 5 folks, basically 3 of them must work in an office that's located within a HUBZone. That office is called your principal office. The Small Business Administration provides a tool that will help you determine if any of your offices are in a HUBZone. You can see I provide a URL here on the slide below the map. In the top left of the map, you can enter your address. On the map itself, a push pin will show that address, and you can see if it's in a HUBZone or not by the colors. And on the right, you can see the actual details of your address against the SBA map, including specifically whether you're qualified in a HUBZone. You're looking at my company address here on the map and see that it is qualified. This tool requires you enter addresses one at a time, but I did build a tool for free use that allows you to upload a lot of addresses in a spreadsheet to bulk validate those addresses. You can learn more about that on the HUBZone Chamber of Commerce website. One last thing to keep in mind, you can always move into a HUBZone and make that your principal office. SBA not only allows it, they encourage it. That's sort of the whole point of the HUBZone program, to stimulate the local economy. If you open an office there to get HUBZone certified, that community will definitely benefit and you'll help the local workforce as well as the economy. The HUBZone program was designed to aid in workforce and economic development in historically underutilized communities. In order to become a HUBZone certified company, you must prove you're a small business, owned by U.S. citizens, and have your principal office in a HUBZone itself. There's one more criteria. Let's talk about your employees, which touch on the goal of workforce development. In order to be eligible for HUBZone certification, 35% of your employees must live in a HUBZone. Unlike the principal office, it doesn't matter where they work. For this criteria, you count all of your employees. Keep in mind also, it doesn't matter where they live as long as 35% of your employees live in HUBZones. They don't need to live in the same HUBZone or the HUBZone where you have a principal office. If the beautiful Bedford Falls here was a HUBZone, then some of your employees could live there and bank with George Bailey. So what does 35% mean? Well, here are some examples, but don't overthink this. If you and one other person make up your company, then one of you must live in a HUBZone. That would be 50%, so clearly over the 35% needed. If you had 3 folks, then 2 out of the 3 must live in a HUBZone. If only one did, then you'd only have 33% of your employees in a HUBZone, and that would not meet the criteria. Again, pretty straightforward, right? Same thing with 10 employees. You need at least 4 employees living in a HUBZone to meet or exceed the 35% criteria. One tip that I love, hire part-time employees. Someone who works 10 hours per week for your company every week is considered a full-time employee. Yes, you heard that correctly. You could hire a college student or someone looking for just a few hours and pay them minimum wage to help you with some back office or marketing tasks. They would count towards your 35% employee criteria. It would be good for you, good for them, and for the local economy, since we both know they'll spend their paycheck with the local businesses. As small businesses, we can sometimes be overwhelmed by government contracting. The reality, though, is that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. If you follow the process, you'll achieve the results you hope for, including success. The criteria to become HUBZone certified is very straightforward. The process to get certified is even easier. First step, determine whether you're eligible. Basically, it's a go or no-go decision. You're either eligible or you're not. The second step in the process to get HUBZone certified is to identify the risks that might delay or prevent your application from being accepted or approved. The third step, just like cooking a great dinner, is to do all the prep work ahead of time. To submit an application for HUBZone certification, you'll need to have certain other tasks completed first. I'll walk through what those are from a high level. Finally, we're at the application process. To me, this is no more involved than putting the roast in the oven for dinner. You shouldn't be doing last-minute seasoning. That all should have been done in the prerequisites phase. Same thing here. When you submit your application, you should not be gathering needed documentation or doing other tasks. Now you're certified, and I'm 100% confident that you'll get your HUBZone certification if you follow the process. The first step in the process to become HUBZone certified is to determine if you're eligible. Don't overthink this. Based on the SBA size standards, are you a small business? If yes, then the next question is your company owned and operated by U.S. citizens or eligible organizations? If yes, then the next question is your principal office located in a HUBZone? If yes, then your final question is, do 35% of your employees live in a HUBZone? If yes, then you're eligible. If you answered no to any of these criteria, then you need to decide if you're willing to make adjustments to your company that would bring any of those answers to yes. If you answered yes to all of the questions, then you're eligible to become HUBZone certified and you should apply. The second step in the process to become HUBZone certified is to understand and address the risks of delay or rejection to your application. When properly done, risk management can help you guarantee success. The first step of the process was to determine your company's eligibility for HUBZone certification. Size standard and company ownership are pretty easy since they're already determined. But determining your principal office and HUBZone employees can be riskier. In fact, according to the SBA, 85% of all application rejections are related to invalid principal office and insufficient proof that 35% of your employees actually live in a HUBZone. I provide a lot of guidance to my Success Club members on mitigating these risks, but let me just say that for your principal office, which I'll assume is in a HUBZone, you just need good proof that most of your employees work there. And for the 35% employee criteria risk, just have more than 35% so you don't have to worry about it. Another very basic risk to avoid is not having the correct information listed in Dun & Bradstreet, which feeds into sam.gov, which feeds into GLS and DSBS. Just go make sure all of these are good to go. I'll tell you a story about my own application. It was rejected initially because the SBA couldn't verify that my principal office was in a HUBZone. Turns out that my landlord had used two totally different addresses for the same building. I had one, and Dun & Bradstreet had another that fed into SAM. I had to address this issue with a letter and a map and talking back and forth to the SBA, but I could have avoided it altogether if I had just updated Dun & Bradstreet and then sam.gov. Another risk is not having all the documentation you need. You can avoid the problem by just having it all ready before you even submit your application. You can submit your application with just some of the documentation and then you can provide the rest later, but why would you do that? Just gather everything and submit it at the time of your initial application. Related to the documentation are risks related to timelines. The process from SBA's standpoint is very formal and must be followed. Two things to pay attention to here. First, as I said, make sure you have all the documentation you need. I'll provide a checklist for anyone interested to make this easy to track. Second, make sure you're tracking all emails from them and looking at your application status messages daily so you can get back to the SBA. You must respond within certain time frames or your application will be canceled and you'll need to start again. Last thing I wanted to say, don't game the system. Not only is it wrong, it's not going to help you. If you have to game the system to get certified, then you should not get certified at this time. Just wait until you're positive you can meet all the criteria before going through the application process. In order to apply for your HUBZone certification with the best chance for success, get the following prerequisite tasks completed first. You've already determined that you meet the eligibility criteria of being a small business that U.S. citizens own at least 51% of, and that both has a principal office located in a HUBZone, as well as 35% of your staff living in a HUBZone. Next, you want to make sure Dun & Bradstreet, SAM, and DSBS profiles are all active and updated. Most importantly, you want to make sure that your principal office address is listed in Dun & Bradstreet correctly and showing up in SAM. Check that address against the SBA HUBZone map. Verify also in SAM or DSBS that your primary NAICS is what you want it to be. Next, make sure you have a GLS account and that you request access to submit a HUBZone application. Again, you do that through the GLS account. One of the most valuable steps you can take to ensure success of your application is to gather all the necessary documentation into one folder on your hard drive. I provide a checklist for you to ensure you don't miss anything. On that checklist, I let you know which documents are time sensitive, for example, payroll records, and I provide suggested time frames to gather them. Another thing I recommend you do before submitting your application is to tell everyone who could possibly help you. Whether you elected them or not, your congressional representative can be an awesome support to you. First, you just want them to even be aware of the HUBZone program. I provide a sample email you can send. It'll only take you 5 minutes, but the potential upside is huge. They want you to win government contracts and bring that money back into their district. Reach out and schedule an appointment with your local PTAC counselor. These people are awesome and committed to your success. And if you get them engaged, the turnaround time on your application could be much faster. These counselors have extensive experience in government contracting. They can provide you the guidance you need to prepare to submit your HUBZone application. I would have them review your material before you submit your application, but make sure you give them enough time though. Consider reaching out to your local Small Business Development Center, Women Business Center, and if appropriate, your local Veteran Opportunity Business Center. They're all funded by the SBA and they exist to support small businesses just like yours. Additionally, each Tuesday and Thursday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, you can dial into the SBA to get questions answered by the HUBZone Program Office. This is probably the best place to ask questions related to your eligibility, especially if your situation is not typical. As you go through the application process, prerequisite phase, write down questions that you can ask the HUBZone Program Office. That information is on the resource slide and provided with my HUBZone certifications tip sheet. Finally, I'll mention the Small Business Success Club that I lead. This is a monthly membership for small business government contractors focusing on helping them succeed. We host regular calls each week that can be used for any question related to government contracting, including getting HUBZone certified. If you exhaust other resources, consider joining our community. In order to apply for the HUBZone certification, you need to have a GLS account. This is part of the prerequisite tasks you should complete before applying to ensure your success. When you get the GLS account, you can then request access to the HUBZone application portion. It's straightforward, but without it, there is no application. You can see my GLS dashboard here. I have access to 3 things through GLS. You see HUBZone, that's the link to the application page, which I'll show you in a minute. Below that is SBA supplemental pages, which is basically access to your DSBS profile data. And over on the right, you see Subcontracting Network or Subnet. When I click on the HUBZone link, I'm taken to the HUBZone Dashboard. This webinar is a high-level introduction, not detailed training, but I'll walk you through the elements of this dashboard that matter for getting certified. The first link says Important Docs Request List, but actually goes to the SBA HUBZone Program Frequently Asked Questions. The free checklist you can get from me and the HUBZone Chamber of Commerce will contain the necessary documents, so you'll be fine. The second link is the one you'll use to submit your application. It's very straightforward if you prepared, as I described in this webinar, and you gathered all the necessary documentation beforehand. This slide is mostly a review of everything I've covered in the webinar. Some things to remember: make sure your prerequisites are completed before coming to GLS to apply. Once you click on the application link, you'll just be entering in facts, and you need to do it in one session. Once you apply, you'll receive an email from SBA telling you you have 10 days to respond. Don't let this go to junk mail. Look for it daily in your email. Make sure you're looking at the email account listed in SAM as well. That's the one you used for your company's primary point of contact. You can also track this in GLS under the correspondence link, which is basically the internal email for the HUBZone application. Again, just like when you were watching for that first email, track your email and the GLS internal communication daily. This entire application can go very smoothly, but it's time sensitive, and you need to respond quickly to any question from the SBA to keep the application moving forward. Don't be one of those people who tell someone doing their job that it's all wrong. No one likes that person. The HUBZone program office is minimally staffed with a tiny budget. Not only are they expected to get all of this done in a timely manner, now they have me in the mix. And what I mean by this is that I personally plan on finding 5,000 small businesses like yours that are qualified for the HUBZone program and encourage you to get certified and start winning more contracts. If I'm successful at convincing you to get HUBZone certified, then I'll be increasing the workload on the SBA by hundreds of %. So be the applicant these folks deal with who has everything prepared and checked over by your local PTAC counselor. When you're asked to provide information, don't argue, just provide it. If you disagree with something you're told, don't argue, just provide the necessary data and evidence to prove your point. Finally, and I can't say this enough, reach out to your local PTAC. Get their advice and support. These folks dedicate themselves to your success. They want you to succeed. I only have one piece of advice for you when you're working with them. When a PTAC counselor gives you advice on how to succeed, just do it. They know what they're talking about. Okay, shoot me an email when you decide to apply for your HUBZone certification. Then email me again when you actually do submit your application. Finally, let me celebrate with you. Send me a third email to tell me you got certified. It would be really awesome to hear from you. Here are 10 resources that will be helpful in your journey to become HUBZone certified. SAM is there for you to update and, most importantly, check the address shown. GLS is there so you can get an account, request the HUBZone section, and finally apply when you're ready. I mentioned the various organizations you can reach out to. Each of these links lead to a page that allows you to find your local support center. Reaching out to these folks is like adding decades of experience to your team. Please tell them that Neil McDonnell and the HUBZone Chamber of Commerce sent you. Speaking of that, I provide a link for you to join the HUBZone Chamber of Commerce. Membership is free, and we provide a lot of content at no cost to help any small business in addition to HUBZone certified companies. Take a look at the Meet the Experts panel session we did with several PTACs, and you'll see how helpful they can be to you. I also provide a link to the bulk validator I built. This tool allows you to upload a CSV file of your staff and office addresses, which will then be processed against the SBA map. The output is a single PDF of all your addresses. It eliminates the wasted time of having to put the addresses in one at a time. Use of this tool is free to anyone seeking HUBZone application or organizations supporting those applicants. Finally, I provide a link to my Small Business Success Club. While I do provide a ton of free content and training on the HUBZone Chamber website, LinkedIn, and YouTube, I also have more advanced content and support available. I've helped more than 1,000 small businesses in 2018 and created the Small Business Success Club in response to their request for more help. When you've exhausted my free content and all the free content from the organizations that are out there, come join our community of small businesses looking to succeed in government contracting. I'm very excited for you and your company as you pursue the HUBZone certification. Connect with me on social media and let's stay in touch. You never know when we can help each other or work together. Either way, I'd welcome the connection just to hear how it's going for you as it relates to the HUBZone application. The best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn. It's where I announce anything and where I first announce new free content available. Also, check out the videos my team and I put on YouTube. We'll continue to populate that with content that I know you'll find valuable. Finally, follow me on Twitter if you're on there. I often share great information originating from the federal government that could also help you. Last thing before you go. You've stayed this long and I hope you found the time well spent. If you want me to send you the HUBZone certification checklist, just comment below and give this webinar a thumbs up. This will let me know you want the checklist and also let others know what you think of it. I'm Neil McDonnell, reminding you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process.